Hello everyone, hope all of you are taking care of yourselves. Before we move ahead with the syllabus today, there are a couple of things that I'd like to remind all of you. In Civics, we've already finished Civics Chapter 2, which is what is democracy, why democracy. And for history, we've already finished the first chapter of history, that is the French Revolution. In the group, I've already sent the notes and the timelines. So in case any of you have missed out on those, please get in touch with me and I'll send them to you. Also, please feel free to get in touch with me anytime. You can get my number from the group, so that shouldn't be a problem. After you have had a look at the videos, you heard the explanation, after you've read the notes that I sent you, it's after that I'd like you to then read the textbook. So the notes will help you guide, would act like a guide for the chapter in the textbook, so you don't get too overwhelmed by it. And later, after that, I want you to write down the questions, the answers to the questions. Once again, you will find all the answers in the notes, and while you listen to the video, they've all been explained. However, please thoroughly also read the textbook. At the end of each chapter in the textbook, you'll have a glossary or keywords. Please go through them carefully. So if there are any new words that you find confusing, it's not a problem. And again, I'm reminding you, please get in touch with me. A lot of you, in fact, have already gotten in touch with me. A few of you definitely. And I'm very impressed with the questions you've asked me. So I'll be waiting. All right, as we move ahead, today we're going to go back to Civics, and we're going to have a look at Civics Chapter 3, and the name of the chapter is Constitutional Design. In this chapter, a lot of your syllabus for Form 9 Civics is based off whatever you've done in Form 8. So don't worry too much about it and don't let it confuse you, because it's just going to be a build-up on the things you already had a look at in Form 8. So in Form 8 also you had a look at the Constitution, and so will you once again have a look at the Constitution in Form 9 in Chapter 3 in just a little more detail. We'll not only have a look at the Indian Constitution, but we'll also have a look at the Constitution of South Africa. In fact, we'll start with the Constitution of South Africa, because then it will help us better understand how the Constitution of India has been made, and what kind of an atmosphere, society we're trying to create after having a look at scenarios in different places. Alright, so as we begin with the chapter, it's very important to understand a very simple definition of what a constitution is. If you have a look at your keywords, it's written that a constitution is a supreme law of a country containing fundamental rules governing the politics and society in a country. So basically, in short, a constitution is a book of laws, and these laws are made for the governing or the running of a country. Our constitution, the Indian constitution, has divided three basic branches for running the country. That is legislature, executive, and the judiciary. The legislature is the body that formulates the policies. The executive is the body that executes or implements the policies, and judiciary is the body which sees that justice is carried out throughout the land, irrespective of status, caste, creed, color, nothing. Everyone is equal in the eyes of the law, or we have something known as rule of law. We'll be looking at these things in more detail in the coming chapters. Alright, well, so to begin with, in this chapter, we'll start with having a look at South Africa. South Africa, is a little country in Africa, in the south of Africa. Predominantly there was a black population. So alright, I want you to remember, you're not supposed to refer to people on the basis of their skin color, but once upon a time, and sadly even today, racism But today racism is absolutely illegal, alright? But then still people differentiate on the basis of skin color. Here differentiation is not going to just be to distinguish that a person is from a different region, but this differentiation or skin color is going to be used to look down upon another person. So well, there are whites, there are blacks, we would be brown, some people would be yellow. So anyway, well, the population in South Africa was black, and eventually they came to be dominated by the white population. The whites practiced an extreme form of discrimination against the blacks, and this discrimination came to be known as apartheid. It's a very important word, and once again I would like you to try and remember the meaning to it if you can. Apartheid would apartheid would be defined as the official policy of racial separation and ill treatment of blacks followed by the government of South Africa between 1948 and 1989. Alright, so that was what was happening in South Africa. Now, how was this apartheid being practiced? Well, people were labeled on the basis of their skin color. The non-whites did not have any voting rights and were forbidden from living in white areas, which means but much later when you look at Indian history also, you'll see how the Britishers had divided their areas compared to the areas of Indians. But that's much later when you take history in the higher standards. But for now, here also we see how the whites had their separate areas and they segregated them from the blacks. Also, we have to remember that the whites would have cleaner areas, and not a lot of hygiene would then be practiced in the areas which were dominated by the black. So well, the non-whites are going to be black people, and they're also going to be brown people, which means people who are not white, who are not Europeans, but yet at the same time they're from other regions of the world who've settled in South Africa. So well, the non-whites did not have voting rights and were forbidden from living in white areas. The blacks, colored and Indians fought against this apartheid system from 1950 onwards. One body which became very important at this time to fight against apartheid was called the ANC, or the African National Congress. It was the umbrella organization that led the struggle against the policies of segregation or separation or discrimination. Nelson Mandela was one of the leaders amongst the 8 who were tried for treason by the white South African government. They were sentenced to life, imprisoned in 1964 for daring to oppose the apartheid regime in the country. Well, you've all heard about the name of Nelson Mandela. He fought for the rights of the blacks and the colored people, and in fact he fought against apartheid in South Africa. And of course he was at that, so even today if you say anything that's against the government, it's seen as treason and you're just put behind bars. And the same thing happened at that time also. Although now we have a judiciary to actually question things if things go wrong. But at that time, judiciaries were really not that independent a body to go to asking for them to safeguard your rights. So anyway, Nelson Mandela was then put behind bars. Much later, Nelson Mandela will be released and he will go on to head the country. But at this time that we're looking at, he fought against apartheid and he was put in jail. Now, how did the whites end up in South Africa? Well, before forming a government, they just came to South Africa majorly to trade. And over time, because they had arms with them and superior ammunition, over time they started dominating the areas. They overthrew the local rulers and formed their own government. Now, well, however, over time, South Africa did finally get independence because of the work of ANC. But before that, let's just have a look at how this apartheid was being practiced, or how discrimination was taking place. In the apartheid system, the oppressed people, or the colored and the blacks and the Indians, were, especially the blacks, were forbidden from living in white areas. They could work in white areas only if they had a permit. Trains, buses, taxis, hotels, hospitals, schools and college libraries, cinema halls, theaters, beaches, swimming pools, public toilets were all separate for the whites and blacks. So this separation is known as segregation. In fact, even blacks were not allowed to form organizations or protest against the government. But however, over time, they did rise and they made sure that the rights were given to them. Thank you.